Hello, my name is Christian Swenson. I do videos here on YouTube about autism, autistic consciousness, and life on the autism spectrum. There is a historical figure I would like you to meet. I've been doing those videos lately, the Kandinsky one, the Borges one, But this is the guy who invented the word autism. This figure, I have it pulled up on my other monitor, his name is Eugen Bleuler. I will write it for you in a blue pen. How does that sound? Eugen, how do you spell it? Bleuler. Feel free to correct my Germanness, but let me read to you this guy who invented autism in 1912, the word autism, not the condition. Let's read his tagline on Wikipedia, shall we? You can pull it up with me and we'll read along. Paul Eugen Bleuler, 30th April 1957 to 15th July 1939, was a Swiss psychiatrist and eugenicist, most notable for his contributions to the understanding of mental illness. He coined many psychiatric terms, such as schizophrenia, schizoid, autism, depth psychology, and what Sigmund Freud called Bleuler's happily chosen term, ambivalence. So, I want to ask you this question. Was Herr Bleuler over here, was he autistic? What do you think? Do you think he understood autism? Do you think he understood what was happening enough to give it a name? Do you think that if that name was inappropriate to describe the patients he was treating, and sterilizing, by the way, that's something he did, do you think we should keep using it? Now, the video today is about why, in my opinion, autism, for this and many other reasons, is a word that should not be used. I will continue using it because it is a word that people understand, but for reasons I'll get into, it should, I'm sure, eventually, I want it to be phased out. So, the first reason why I think autism should not be used as a word is that it has a history that does not reflect the interests of autistic people. Right? Here's the second reason. Autism, as Herr Bleuler describes it, is defined as morbid self-absorption. Now, I've done videos before about how autism is not self-absorption, but a lostness in the world, an expansion, a flooding of the world with the self, a merging of the two. And this is a misunderstanding by a doctor who did not live inside these patients' skulls, or outside them, And I guess the second reason is that, autism, let's look, shall we? It comes from the Greek root auto. Can anybody tell me what this means? It means self, right? Like an automobile. I'm going to drive myself, right? Oh, what's another example? Automatic, right? You can do it yourself. It does itself, right? It does its own thing. And I don't think we have that much to do with the self. Like I did in a video, I don't think we have a self, or at least not the same type of self as a neurotypical, to the point where they would not call it a self, right? It is a mistake to call us autistic if that's what it means. Here's the other reason, and this is a bit more controversial. This is the third reason. Autism, in my opinion, is not even a single thing at all. Right? If we're going back to the definition given by Herr Bleuler over here, Herr Dr. Bleuler, he is identifying behavior from the outside using 19th and early 20th century ideas. And even though we've moved on, we've done 5 DSMs, imagine that, and imagine that what autism is has changed by just magically by the DSM's publications. Like, oh, the world changed overnight because the DSM doctors decided it wanted to, right? Well, we haven't changed. Our minds and bodies haven't changed, right? And because autism is now one thing instead of two things, right? Asperger's syndrome and then autism. Well, that doesn't change you, right? You're not your diagnosis. You're not what you suspect your diagnosis is. And to be honest, looking through the comments of this YouTube channel, you have remarkably different experiences from each other and often me. Some of you are hyperlexical like me, intelligent, loquacious. There's a loquacious word. Loquacious is loquacious. You're verbose, right? And you have a hard time connecting with your feelings, right? Some of you are intrinsically connected to the energies around you, to the feelings, and you have to hide from the feelings, right? And others of you can't speak very much at all, right? Some of you can listen to music and connect with it. Others can't, right? Some of you experience low tension and others high tension. And you get the sense, like people say, no two people with autism are the same, and that's why we call it a spectrum. Well, at what point does a spectrum cease to be a single phenomenon? You know, is light, the light spectrum is light, right? And they have light in common, but brown's really different from purple, you know, and so is yellow. And you kind of get the sense that autism is a very ill-defined word. It includes more than it defines. It includes so much that it's diluted and diffuse. And in my opinion, in this sense, you know, autism doesn't even exist. Not as a single thing. Certainly people with autism exhibit the characteristics you know you have, but other people with autism don't, right? And honestly, this has a lot to do with insurance companies, right? To get a diagnosis, right, gives you the wherewithal to get prescriptions, right? And that can be a useful thing, but it's also a business enterprise, right? So don't think naively about this. And here's another reason why I think autism should be retired as a word. There is this weird groupthink that happens in the autism community. It's like, I'm autistic, right? I'm amazing because I'm autistic. I found my community. I found people like me, right? Well, what happens if you find someone who's not like you? I've seen this on my YouTube comments. It's like, we're going to bully you. You're not immune from bullying, right? You haven't just been bullied. You can bully. Imagine that, right? And what ends up happening is like, I don't think you're autistic, or I don't think people who have these experiences are autistic. Well, really? Really? You're going to deny someone? You know, you're going to deny someone their identity, but because they don't fit your identity, right? Do you assume, right, that everybody with autism can be exchanged for everybody with autism? You think that you are identical with your group gives you your identity? Well, I think that's a bad idea, because you're not just autism, right? You're not even, I mean, even if we're admitting my point that autism is a cluster of disorders instead of a single one, you're not even your particular fruit salad, right? You are your gender, right? You're your family's product. You're your culture's product. You are a race. You are a sexuality. You are a moment in time. You are talents. You are skills. You are desires. You are ideas. You're not autism. Not entirely, and not even mostly. Autism divides you from most of the world. Why would you want that? Wouldn't you want to feel connected? Like, it feels like often we're complicit in making ourselves aliens or gods or superheroes, right? But all of those are lonely. You know, do you want to be lonely? Right? Well, even if you don't have the social skills, you can do a hell of a lot by admitting there are things in common between you and other people that are not autistic. And there are, right? You both like Marvel movies. Imagine that. You as an autistic boy and she as a fangirl, right, who's not autistic. You both like Marvel movies. Imagine that. Interracial connection, intra-ableist connection or whatever, right? And Why are we focusing so much on differences? Why not look for connections? Not to see connections that aren't there, but to look for real ones, because they are there. And I guess the other reason autism should be retired as a word, this is the last reason, is honestly that it conceals more than it reveals. Right? It conceals all the differences between people, right? It gets us to not notice the particular person. It gets us to not notice their particular way of viewing and living in the world. It's just, oh, they're autistic, so I must be like them. And then you start to maybe act like them. And it's just like this placebo effect kind of thing. Not to say that you don't have autism, but you don't have their autism, right? You have yours. And it isn't even autism, because autism is a poorly made, honestly, problematic word. I don't like the word problematic. It's problematic, but this is how most people use it. It's a poorly made, antique, neurotypically defined medical term that can be used to bully and to misunderstand. So stop using it. Not now, because we need to communicate with each other, but eventually. We need to still use it to communicate, but eventually, I would like to see us see each other as people with individual views of the world and not this collective behemoth that was gifted to us by a eugenicist that does us more harm than good. My name's Christian Swenson. Like, subscribe. I'll do 2 more videos this week. Take care.